Is this Cousin Mimi's microphone? I'm gonna use it. All right, we have something. I'm gonna show how. I'm gonna show how we do the plot thing. Run away, go, keep going. Gotta run it. All right, so must we do it right here? Here's how we're gonna do this. We're gonna have a character. And you're stuck again? We're gonna have a character, we're gonna name him Jeff Mayer. His name is Jeff Mayer, and he is a guy. So what we do after that is we try to think, who is this person? Who is Jeff Mayer? We can make a description, we can make him anything we want. I'm not going to write it all here because it would take too much. I might write some of it. But let's just say this part here, that's the description. Description. Alright? And we will just, we could really get it down to a science and say, here's how you would describe a person. But the general idea is to get the layout of their psyche or something about them, whatever it may be. We could say that Jeff is selfish, unmotivated, broke, and a dreamer. Right, and then we'd probably formulate that into like sentences, actual sentences. Like, Jeff is the kind of guy that doesn't give a fuck about anyone or anything, for the most part, but he kind of does. He just doesn't want to show that he gives as much as he does. And we could talk about why he has like a background. We could say, you know, when he's growing up, this and that happened to him. Just so we can get a sense of a person. Just make a person. Let's get a sense of who they are. You know what I mean? That's the most important part. Once you kind of get a feel, just a slight feel for this character, you'd have to kind of flesh it out. Now, luckily, I'm not going to use the real characters here because that would just be a waste of my time, in a way. I like characters that I didn't already do, or they'll reason this for your characters. So I'm not going to write down Alestra because then I'm going to start saying shit, and I don't know. So pretend we're doing that, and you know Alestra, or Vathia, or whoever. It's all of your characters. Every single one of them is going to have this. Once that's all done, then we jump in to their first act. Okay, this will be the first time we're going to be joining your character right now. Wish I could handle that fucking problem. Every time I turn around and then I turn back. I don't know. Anyway, the first act that we're going to be joining this character in, okay? What is the first thing we have would be their conflict. So what is your character's conflict? What's the one thing that's going to be hindering them in this section of the book or their story? So you have to think, okay, I'm going to put him in the first place that I see him. Where do you see your character in the first place? So for, I'll leave that. Let's just use, we will use those characters. Let's just use Vathia. Okay? We have a little description of Vathia. Kevin knows the guy. He describes everything he needs to know about the person on a human level. Certain characters you don't need to. Certain characters are purely just there to help your main character, so you don't need to go that far. You might just be like, he is this, he is that, he will do this, and blah, blah, blah. Okay? You have that. Your first act. Where do you first see Vathia? You first see him when we jump in. Where? Let's say it's in the mountains of Gaiavala. So in your first act, the mountains of Gaiavala. What is the conflict that he has in the first part? It sounds like, if we're doing the story, it sounds like he was having a hard time traversing through the mountains. I don't know what you'd put there. You could be like, logistics? logistics slash, I don't know. I don't know the words, man, the military terms, but like just having a hard time going through this fucking area. So that could be his problem. What is his resolution? Which would be R. And the resolution to that section would be for Vathia to what? What would help him possibly make his way through his first conflict? We don't want to get too small, is the thing. We want to make sure it's big. So we would take the act and think of it as a whole. So the first act isn't going to be, he's on the mountains and he doesn't know what to do. I don't know how to word this. He doesn't, he can't get through. Then the next act is when he meets the thing in the woods. And then the next act, like it doesn't, acts are a large span for the most part. If you remember in mine, my acts were, they span from, I think it was, I don't remember, I'll be honest. But here's how we're going to do it. We're going to say Act 1 would be from the beginning of, like when you first see him on the mountain, I don't remember where he's at, but on Guyvala Mountain, all the way to after he gets to the place he was getting to. That seems like that's an act. So what can you say story-wise happens within that act? I don't know. I can't say. Because I don't know how long that section is. And I don't really... I know that it's kind of half finished. There's only about a few pages, maybe 20 pages of that part. So I don't really know what's going to happen there. And that's where you have to come up with like, okay, what is the conflict? What is the resolution? Maybe the conflict is something about like his purpose. Maybe the conflict is something to do with a family-related thing. If we remember the story correctly, Vathia he's escaping into the mountains. No, that would have been after. At this point, he's in the mountains doing what he's told to do. They said to go here to this monastery in the mountains, and that's all you needed to know. Why is he taking all him and his men there? So what's going on? Doesn't really know. But when along the way he starts uncovering certain things, and then from that point he understands that something happens to Gearlord. And I think right there he knows something's wrong. So you have to think, what does he do with that information? Does he just say, nah, fuck it, and just kind of continue to do what he's got to do? Or does he kind of just try to, does he try to like do something about it? And I had like suggested that, I drew it up on here, like, we could get him away and have him try to figure out what's going on and have adventures along the way. Does that work for him? Does that work for the way you envision the story? And that's why you have to do that. You have to think of Vathia's entire story. So like I know, for instance, eventually they're going to try to get him back on the, I wouldn't call it throne, but in control of Tantorum. Not like he ever was, but Gearlor was, in a sense. It's more democratic. But they want to get him, certain people want to get him there and replace Vandensteer. So with that, if you're going to have that problem, we do know after that, I should say, that he's going to, how do I word this gently, blame the Inakume for a lot of things going on, cause a lot of conflict going forward with Lyria. Now that would be, going after that, I think it will be his, would we call him stepbrother, I guess, Titus, who then tries to kill Vathia, thinking that he is doing everything that Tantorum does not need, and that will cause problems going forward. That's how I envision the story. I don't know the end result, and I don't know a whole lot before that, because it's like, I could make this character, I could take it and make a story, but I don't think that would I don't think you would want that. I think you need to make this story. I know I'm everywhere, but this is how my brain works, I guess, right now. I feel like I'm in a weird, kind of foggy kind of. So we'll say that's Vathia. Let me go to the next part. Okay. Now we would think about how we're going to make Vathia a whole. So I think the first thing you're going to have to do before all of this is write where he starts, write his journey that you want him to have, and where he's going to end. And from that point is when you can start breaking down into acts. And to do that, you must understand your character. So write everything down you know about him. Talk about him like a human being. Say, who's Vathia? What does he want? What are his goals? What happened to him? You get all that down. You know his whole story. Now you just break it apart. And from there, you can, first act Vathia. You have his conflict, his resolution, what he wants, and then how he gets it. You write all that down, and that's his first act. And then you say part 1. And you describe it. Vathia is sent up in the mountains for unknown reasons, does this, then is told to do that. And then he makes his way, and then he meets the anger spirit. Or the spirit of rage, I believe. Then that ends that part. And then the spirit of rage gives him a vision of something because of Mother Gaia, or whatever that you said that it was. Part 2. What does he do after he finds out that Mother Gaia said this to him? And then this is what he dealt with the rage demon. Now what's he going to do? And then he does that. Part 3. Then what's he going to do? It's like, okay, from there, and you just keep going until you see a natural conclusion. And it wraps it all up in a bow. He had a conflict. He resolved that conflict. He wanted a certain thing in that chapter, and here's how he got it. That's what you do, and then you just go by parts. And that's from acts. And then you move and move and move until their conclusion. When it comes to Elastra, I know the general story of Elastra. I mean, Jacob's told it to me many times. It is a very pivotal part of the actual whole story. What I don't know is just these simple things. I've heard the incredible scenes, like the scene with I think it was when he was going to be assassinated at some point. I don't know why or where. And he saw his own vision inside of a bowl, and then all of a sudden stuff's going down. It's crazy. And then, what was his buddy's name? I don't remember. His friend's name who kills his father. You know what I'm talking about. So it's like you have all these scenes that are happening. And there's sporadic and stuff like that. And I can see it happening, but they just need to be laid out. We just need to lay it all out and then we would just go, Elastra. A description about Elastra. He was the son of blah, 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 this and that if you need to. And you just talk about who he is as a person. Just keep that in your head. And then you would go in and say, first act. Probably getting to Voss. That's a first act if I've ever heard one. And you'd begin with, I believe it was the Stone Circle, I think is what you call it, or something like that, where it's like all these high-ranking peoples of Quran, or if not a whole entirety of the South, get together, and then there's like these druids that come out, and it's this whole vision thing. It's very Celtic. And then they learn about something going on there, and then Elastra will have like a vision of Eris. They know he needs to get this person, because them being Eomen themselves, of the same ilk as those from Madrana, they're all from Dulag, the Forgotten King, so they're going to have similar interests. And then that would be like, you need to go. You need to go there. And so that's your first act. It's like all that stuff there. And then moving forward, it's like, how does he acquire the ship and all that? You can do that. And first act is his conflict, is his visions, What is his resolution? I wouldn't call it prophecy, but like, let's just say prophecy. I don't want to sit here and dwell. Prophecy, and then what does he want? Does he want answers at that point? Does he want safety at that point? Does he want what does he want in that moment, from the beginning of where you come to him and everything happened before to the end of this act? What does he want? Well, if you don't know, just go here and just go part by part. Part 1, stone circle. Part 2, like the vision, like I wouldn't call it vision quest, but like maybe he's induced into some sort of trance by a TAOA or something, whatever it is. And part 3, when they, I don't know, like the prophecy, and then they like speak about what he's going to be doing, what he needs to do. Part 4 would be like acquiring a way to get to the other continent. And then from that point, you have it all there. Now your second act would be obvious. But your first act, you start to see, okay, all this that happened, what is it that he wants? Seems like he wants answers. How does he get them? Well, he's got to go to Voss. And so then second act, maybe your second act is the sailing to Voss. Maybe things happen along the way. And that's why it's really important that I'm creating the companion thing for you. So it's like you can say, okay, on, let's say part 4, you want it to be something that happens in the waters. We have a bestiary. And then when you do land, we have it all laid out. It's like the places of Tantorum or Ferosamar or wherever you might land, everything will be laid out. The docks will be named. You know, it's just, it won't be like fucking stressful. It's real. It's there, essentially. It's real. And so you can say to land at the Ersamire docks, and then here's the people that work at those docks in the short description. Here's blah, 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 the history of this land. And then you can kind of already have that, and it's already laid out for you, and you're just moving along. You're just chugging along. And that's all you got to do with your characters. Just keep doing that. And I just find simplifying the world around makes this a hell of a lot easier. Because you don't know what's out there. Like, for me, like, I don't know what the fuck's out there. From Adrana to, like, the Murphos to me is like a big, like, blank mess. I don't even know. I'm like, how the fuck, and what is it like, and how long does it take, and all these, like, questions of, like, well, if you're on horseback, how long does it take to travel, like, 500 miles? I don't fucking know. How can you ride the horse properly? There's a lot of, like, crazy questions that you can get caught up in. And so that's why getting this down first will just alleviate that. You get the story out. You have sections you want to go into. Like, let's say part 3, you're talking about the prophecy and you got all these cool ideas. Go in a separate piece and just write it out. Write all your cool ideas out. Then this happens, and then that happens, and he meets this person, blah, blah, blah. And you have it there. And save it. And now you get a second file that's talking about that. So whenever you're coming back to it, you can kind of reread it. Because, you know, your best ideas always come when they channel like that. And you can never plan the channel. That just happens. But this is essentially kind of how I want to see you guys writing, because I think it'll really be really helpful when it comes to just simplifying this. Making this an easier process. Making it less stressful. Creating a system that enables you to not have to focus so much. And then the more you put into the system, the easier it gets. Kind of like sports, you know. You play a system, you're taught it, and you do it enough, you don't have to think anymore. And I just throw it up the wall. And they don't even, you know, there's no one thoughts. Or if you're caught over here, you just ring it around, and then there'll always be a guy over here on this side, or whatever it is. Off the boards and out, you know. You never know. And so that will just be helpful. Where you just, if you're in a pinch, there's a program, there's a system that'll allow you to not fail. That's all I wanted to kind of talk about. I just wanted to lay this out. See how I can be helpful in that. I've already made it 2 before this, I think, so this will be 3. And, or did I make I made 2. Yeah, so this is 3. I want to make this and be as helpful as I possibly can, since we can't physically be together as much. Hopefully this will be enough help. And obviously, like, just ask if you need help, because I don't ask you guys for help too much. I mean, I'll be like, hey, can you send me all your factions like the other day, or can you do this and that, so I get a sense of things. But in the end, I was like, this is not clear enough. I'm going to have to just hold off. But, I mean, this is what's helped me. You know, everybody's got their own system. But at the end of the day, we got to come up with one together, because we have to be on the same page. And it's really hard not being on the same page. You know, especially with really important stuff. I mean, you know, battles and the times of battles, that's okay if we don't understand when it happened, or what exactly road they went down in chapter 5. Like, okay, that's fine. When it comes to the actual story, like, we have to all be on the same page, literally. So, because as you saw from the one video, Nakum and Vasha are going to be directly involved, which are my 2 characters, with your characters, Kevin and Jacob's characters. They're going to be, like, that's where we're going to have to write together. And as you can tell, that's very important. It's a very big, important section. It's not like prophecy important, where he's over here having Luke shit going on at, you know, Dagobah. We're dealing with the Empire, like Han Solo. You know, we're trying to find the hobbits, like the, like Aragorn and the rest of them. We're looking for Gandalf too. Like, it's important. It's really important stuff, and it really fleshes out the largeness of the world, and we get to explore cultures more, because Eris is just always on his own, and he doesn't really get a chance to explore a lot of cultures. He can explore prophecies and old things and legends and all that, but he can't ever explore a Tantorum or talk about what it's like to live in the South, or the conflicts that may rise. How did the South become? Maybe that's an argument that happens between Vathia and Elastra. They can't talk about the weird conflicts between and the Valens and Lyria and all that. Like, this is not Eris's thing. But with your guys' characters, it allows the world to really open up. And then, but you got to remember, you don't just do this with Elastra and Vathia. This is every character that you have. Every single one that you know is going to do something or be important. Lay it all out there. Because then if the more you do it, the more you'll find, like, oh, you know what would be great? This section, maybe he pops in at this section, and then that's why he does this. So you'll solve things. But I'm going to try to keep it as short as I can. So that's that, and hopefully this will help you. Hope you can see it pretty well. And then we can definitely get together if we need to work on this. But this is definitely where we should start. I'm just about done. I have 2 more to work on. I think you saw Vathia, Vasha, and Jal. Once I get them figured out, I can send it you mine, and you can just look at it and you kind of see where I'm at. And it's not perfect. There's going to be spots where it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, or maybe it's rushed or something, but it's a start. And like I said, we just got to at least figure out, because for you guys, essentially you're going to be entering book 2. So you need to figure out the entirety of what you're doing at book 2 all the way till book 3. At the very least, you need to know exactly what's going to happen character-wise for every character in the 2nd book and the 3rd. Now, all your secondary characters aren't necessarily going to be influenced by Eris. Like, I know that was the thing why we're not doing it, but Eris has nothing to do with these stories. He never really did. I just kind of was too focused on other things to kind of talk about that. But your guys' characters are still doing everything they need to do. There's just Vasha and Nakum that are tagging along. That's it. That's it. Like, we need to figure out what they're doing. We need to know their characters. We need to know everything. We need to know their paths that they're going to take. We need to know all the conflicts that arise along the way. Because, like, for me, the most part I know is, like, what we have planned is Vasha and Nakum will get captured by, what's his name? Elastra and his men. Stuff happens, and then Vathia gets them. And then all of a sudden, Vathia is on the tail of somebody, and then they happen upon 464. That's all that's known. So Vathia is chasing Lyrians, what he thinks, and then all of a sudden 464. And that's when the 464 battle happens. But there's so much unknown in there. Like, what is Alastair doing? How did he get to that point? Like, where are they going? If Vasha tells Alastair, hey, that kid in your vision, that we are looking for him too. You help us, we help you. Okay, where are they going? And then they get captured by Vathia? What's Vathia doing? How do we get from Vathia capturing them into 464? Things that have to be solved. I can make things up, but we're never on the same page when I do that. I'm always like, yeah, well, maybe they're chasing Lyrians. And maybe they're doing this and that. And it's like, well, then why were they in the mountains going to the monastery? I don't know. Nothing adds up. And that's where we're stuck. And this one's about to end. So let's get together soon, but let's start thinking about some stuff, and then we'll see where we're at.